Well, hello, hello. Happy Thursday to you, my friends. I hope that you're having a great week. If you're joining me on the replay, hello to you as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're live. I'm excited to welcome you to today's live level up conversation.
Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello, friends. I'm Winnie Sun, your host, Forbes contributor, CNBC council member, and award-winning financial pro. Here to keep you on top of relevant, trending business news. Let me just say that today, plenty of trending business news today. But as you know, you're a part of today's discussion, so I'll be monitoring and sharing audience feedback. Periodically throughout the show. But of course, welcome back. We have and I guess I'm saying welcome back, but it's Thursday. And if you didn't know already, tomorrow is Good Friday. And so it might not mean that much if you are like my kids in school or pretty much any other industry. But in the financial industry, we don't get that many holidays. And in fact, tomorrow is actually a holiday. So the market will be closed. So no NAS, no Dow Jones Industrial Average Index, no S&P Index. Yeah, actually, the market gets a day off. So just so you know, tomorrow we're actually off. And then, of course, I'll be coming back to you next week and update you with more news because there's a lot of stuff happening. But let's first talk about how the market closed. Hello, Vicky. I see you on Facebook Live, my friend. So great to see you here. Let's talk about how the market closed. Okay, the market, unfortunately, triple down day. Not so great. The Dow closed down 113 points today. But the number that I'm really disappointed about, and you may have seen, especially those of you who invest in tech and biotech, and NASDAQ closed down almost 300 points, down 292 points today. The S&P 500 also down 54 points. And let me just say, I don't know if you saw this, but it actually was very early news today. You may have seen even my title for today's stream. Sometimes you wake up and you read business news and you got to do a double take. And you literally have to think, what are people thinking? Today was actually one of those days. In fact, I tweeted early today. I think it was one of my earliest tweets. I said, Twitter feels a little different today. And as those of you who know, I'm actually really active on Twitter. If you don't follow me already, I'm at Winnie Sun on Twitter. I like to tweet a lot. Our tweet chat is pretty much every Wednesday. We talk about all sorts of business, finance, important topics. So if you haven't joined us already, definitely do that. But yes, today, I said that Twitter felt a little different. And now why did it feel different? And it might even feel a little different to you. Well, let me just say, sometimes too much money is sometimes just too much money because Tesla CEO Elon Musk, yeah, if you didn't know already, he's like the world's richest man. He's a very much so a billionaire. Well, basically, he said that he wants to, and he actually did. He made an offer to purchase all of Twitter. That's right. On top of the percentage that he already owns, he offered $43 billion as that was everything. That was his final offer. There was no other, he's not up for negotiations. Take it or leave it is what he says. He basically wants to take over Twitter. He wants to take it private because, as you know, right now it's currently public. And basically, he wants to be able to give us the edit button, which I'm all for being able to edit on Twitter, okay? I think that portion, many of us would agree, is definitely a good thing. But he also wants it so there's more free speech, right? And he wants basically, what else did he want? He wants more free speech. He wants to have a lot of people just automatically be verified, have the little blue check mark. He has big plans for Twitter, let's just say. But he did it in a very interesting way. He posted this out into the universe saying that this is my offer. And his offer amount was really weird too. In fact, it actually was $54 billion, I should say. It's a lot of money. And let me just say, on Twitter, people went nuts. And I'm imagining those employees and executives who are at Twitter, definitely feel a little uneasy about this whole thing. And I just gotta say, from my standpoint, Elon, if you got that much money just sitting around wanting to buy Twitter, I would love to see some other great uses of that money. Perhaps, there's a war going on. There's people that are struggling. We're having supply chain issues, and certainly inflation isn't helping. Maybe you work on one of those side projects. Maybe make one of those your hobby. Maybe leave Twitter alone. In fact, there's a lot of conversation about, in fact, how far he's going to go. Of course, you heard it. Elon Musk said, "This is my best and final offer." There's one offer, $43 billion. So are you going to take it or not? Overall, we're seeing a lot of people have a lot of opinion on this. If you haven't checked out already Twitter, Mark Cuban's been going crazy about this. His tweets are actually pretty entertaining. I've heard on CNBC as well, Jim Cramer says they just can't take the offer. Because you think about it, when you're buying a company of this size with this much money, there's usually some negotiation, right? You usually produce factual evidence that you have financing in place. It's not like you're going out and buying a Tesla, which would be a lot easier. You're buying $1 billion company. You typically have negotiations, have plans in place. Like, are you going to keep the same 401k for the employees? There's a lot of things that need to be worked out. And Elon, I feel like you need a lot of that worked out first. And as an entrepreneur, I feel like there's a lot of things. You got to talk about work-life balance. We got to figure some things out for the employees, right? And the board. And this is a very serious, a smart board that's running Twitter. So hopefully, they can get to that. But I'm curious to see what you think about this. I was just like, okay, today is not April Fool's Day. We're going to tax season. Tomorrow's, Good Friday. There's a lot of other things that we need to be worried about. But yeah, Elon, never boring. That's what you can say. Elon Musk is never a boring person. But I would say that, Elon, as someone who drives one-year vehicles, I would like to see you improve on the vehicle. Maybe give me a little bit more range on my car. Maybe I heard somebody was having problems driving here in Southern California, and all of a sudden the car just couldn't like speed up or slow down. Maybe you work on some of those things first, and maybe leave Twitter to the people running Twitter for now. I don't know. Just an idea, right? Vicky is saying it felt like April Fool's. Joshua CrossX Fighter is laughing out loud. That's how I felt as well. I feel like, it opens the door, but I think on a serious discussion, I think we actually have to think about this a little bit. Twitter and some of the other social media platforms, but mainly Twitter, right? That's where people are communicating. They're sharing news, they're sharing information about the pandemic, about the politicians, and it's giving a voice on a very public forum for so many. Now, Twitter ends up in the wrong hands. That's actually really scary. Have you thought about that? If you haven't, I would invite you to think about that. We need to start thinking about these companies, these entities, and what they represent, and what sort of regulatory standards should there be, some sort of control or protections, if you will, so they don't end up in the wrong hands. Now, I'm not saying, Elon, that you have the wrong hands. I mean, I don't know. I've never shook your hand, so that would be inaccurate to say. But I think that we need to give that some thought, right? It's like back in the day when we were worried where, CBS would end up, or ABC would end up, or, Fox would end up. But where would Twitter, where would that be? Like, what would happen if it ended up in the wrong hands? And I think, Jack, I know you're still on the board of Twitter. I think you need to think about that with your board. I think you get that discussion, because I'm sure you have already. But this is something that is now such a global communication platform that we need to talk about it well beyond share price and purchase price and everything. It's so much bigger than that now, I think. But anyhow, hopefully you're thinking about that. I'm not on the board. I'm not being consulted. So I want to share that with you. It's all over social media. It's all over Twitter. Maybe if you have a moment, you like to watch dramatic TV and whatnot. You can check out some tweets. It's actually very, very entertaining. Now, on other serious news, though, mortgage rates now have hit now 5% for the first time since a very long time, since 2011. So for those of you who already have a home, you've refinanced your home, and as you're in a fixed mortgage, you're probably going to breathe a sigh of relief. I certainly feel that way. But if you haven't purchased a home yet, or you haven't refinanced, or you're in the market for a home, well, probably not the best news. But there's always a positive to all bits of news. And I will say that, you know, when I purchased my first home, the mortgage rate was significantly higher than 5%, and I still survived. So hopefully that's a little bit of good news. You know, if you're still looking to buy a home, just focus on saving for that down payment. Focus on, you know, where you're doing right now. Just focus on saving, and then, you know, keep focus on that. So that's where it's at. So the monthly cost of buying a typical house here in the United States has certainly gone up because mortgage rates have gone up, and of course, real estate prices have gone up as well. So we'll see how that unfolds. But in case that wasn't on your radar, that's what's going on over there. Now, the other thing that I really want to talk to you about, if you haven't paid attention to this too, is today actually Amazon's new CEO, Andy Jassy. Some of you probably didn't even know that Andy Jassy is now the CEO of Amazon. You're probably thinking Jeff Bezos, but Jeff Bezos is too busy hanging out on his mega island-sized yacht to be managing as CEO of Amazon anymore. But anyhow, with Amazon, here's the news here. Amazon has said, this is really important, they've actually now added a 5% fuel surcharge, inflation surcharge for many of their US-based third-party sellers who use Amazon storage and shipping services. This is really important to pay attention to, because the reason for this is you probably thought like me, Amazon's just making so much money, right? Well, there was recent news that came out that said Amazon actually, how much that you and I return, like when things don't work out, we return things, right? They actually have to process as much returns as the US government spends annually on their military budget. Is insane. So because of that, also, now CEO Andy Jassy is saying because there's so much costs that have been incurred and added on because of the pandemic, because of what we talked about yesterday with inflation, and of course, all the war support that we're giving to various countries across the globe, this is all too high for the company. These costs are too much for the company to absorb. And so they're having to translate that to increasing some costs. 5%, you might not think 5% is that high. Well, maybe you do, because you know how much, inflation yesterday I was on the Today Show. If you didn't see me yesterday, definitely Google. I was on the Today Show yesterday. I'll share that link out with everybody. But I was on Today Show yesterday talking about the effects of inflation and just how critical that was, because inflation just this week was announced at 8.5% for the month of March. That's crazy. That's crazy high, considering that typical historically inflation usually rises around somewhere between 2 to 3 to 4%. So let's just say 3 to 4% on average when it's sort of normal. So now inflation is sky high. And now the CEO of Amazon is telling you that their costs, they say they can't even run the business unless they increase some costs because of the pandemic, inflation, and war. Well, if they can't, how do we expect like the restaurant down the street, the mom and pop business, right? Small businesses, which we know make up the majority of businesses here in the United States, how are they supposed to keep up as well? So a lot to think about and really, really important to pay attention to. That just means that as much as the Fed is looking to increase interest rates to help mitigate with inflation, some of the largest companies, most profitable companies in the United States right now are saying, hey, we got issues here. We're actually starting to think of what we're going to have to do. Yes, we want to give our employees more of a raise. Yes, we want to increase work-life balance and give them more benefits, right? And that's looking at you, Google, because I saw the news coming out from you this week. But we're going to have to increase costs. So pay attention. A lot of stuff happening. Historical financial information here. But yeah, Vicky is saying 5% is very high. Absolutely. And Heather is joining us also on Facebook Live saying fuel costs thanks to current administration. Well, that's something we're not going to go, but absolutely costs are definitely going higher. So we're just experiencing that, and let's see what happens next, right? The other thing that I thought, I don't know if you saw this too, and I know many of you don't reside in California like I do, but it's still important to kind of talk about. So California has also now proposed a ban on the sale of gas powered vehicles by the year of 2035. Now, if you're like myself, and I always like to I always consider myself almost like a personal finance futurist, if you will, right? I like that term, futurist. Do you think I should start using futurist? I don't know yet. I'm curious to see what you think. But I think it's really important for us to see what today's news and what potential impact that can have on personal finance, on our future retirement plans, on monies that we're going to need in the future. What does that mean exactly? So basically, here in California, regulators have basically put together a plan to ban the sale of new gas cars by 2035. Okay. Now you might say, okay, that's okay, Winnie. So by 2035, I'll just make sure I don't need a new car. All right. But that's the thing. If you have a gas powered vehicle, right? And they're not allowed to sell new gas vehicles starting in 2035, hypothetically, what's that going to mean to the value of your gas powered vehicle? Is it going to go higher because it's worth more because you can't buy new ones? Or is it going to go lower because obviously, they know it's not good and they're trying to combat greenhouse gas emissions. So it will like just drop and be worth less. Really important to think about. If you're driving a gas powered vehicle, I think you should consider that. And if you're not in the state of California, remember, just because something starts in California doesn't mean that it ends in California. There's always a good chance that it could go from California to Nevada to New York to New Jersey to all the different states, right? So some things to think about. Lots of information going back and forth. So I just thought I'd make sure to keep that on your radar. But before I end here, I just want to thank you all so much for being here with me. Always a treat to have you. We're going to have a whole bunch of new content and a whole bunch of information I'm going to bring to you next week. Lots more to go on there. But if you haven't had a chance yet, let me just remind you that we dropped a brand new podcast episode on the Yes Factor with Winnie Sun. So wherever you tune into your podcast, definitely look up Yes Factor with Winnie Sun. It's a good one. It was a really, really good episode. In fact, let me just say this. So you can see, we're showing right now on the screen. So last week's episode was Solo O'Brien. If you didn't check out that episode, that's a must listen to. But I also want to put Celeste's episode on your radar as well. She was actually one of the 10 most popular, most watched TED Talk speakers in TED Talk history. And she talks about the most powerful ways to communicate. Really, 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 really great show. Hopefully that you get a chance to tune in. And after you listen to it, definitely let me know. Reach out, direct message me, tweet me, whatever you want to do. Let me know that you caught it, and I'll be very grateful for you for doing so. Thank you so much, my friends, for watching and supporting my program. Please take a moment, if you can, to share the show with someone that you care about. And as a reminder, you can find full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun on NASDAQ, KBCW, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And we're excited, of course, to tell you about our brand new podcast. So definitely tune in. Be well. I can't wait to see you again next week. Take care, friends.